All right. Hello, hello, hello. I'm going to do a few tutorials. Um, and it's for everyone in the class, but in particularly those who want to learn a little bit more in Maya. Um, and so the first one, this one I'm going to do is going to be about creating a model with Polygon primitives. And then we'll move to setting up a hierarchy for them so that you can animate them. So I'll do an animation one as well. This tutorial will really just be um, how to create the character using Polygon primitives, just to keep it simple, and I'll go through the other videos afterwards. So here I am, I'm in Maya, and I see my stages here. Here I see my outliner, what's going to be important. We're going to use these three tools here. The move tool, the rotate tool, and the scale tool. And I have my modeling set because I see that I could choose something else, but I want to use the modeling set because then I can see the modeling menu. So stay looking up here, and what I'm going to do is switch from modeling, for example, to rigging, and you see how the menu changes. So that's why we want to stay on modeling, because that's what we're doing. And I also have the polygon modeling primitive set here because I'm going to be using these. Mainly, to be quite frank, I'm really only going to be using the cube and the sphere. Okay, so I'm going to use these two modeling polygon primitives, and I'm going to use these three tools here. And you'll see us go from the perspective camera layout here, this stage right here, to the four panel layout, which shows me not only perspective, but it shows me the top and the side and the front of my stage, as well as the perspective. Okay, so we'll go step by step, and we'll get this going. So here I am. And I am going to start off in my forward view because I really do need to see all this while I'm arranging this model. I'm going to keep my outliner on because it allows me to see the objects that I'm putting in. I might get rid of it for a little while, but I'll bring it in later if I get rid of it. So with the primitives come on the stage at 0, 0, 0 axis. That's X, Y, and Z. You can see it in my channels right here. My X, Y, and Z, 0, 0, 0, and that's where that cube is. And it's showing me this because it's tied to this object that I just put in. So I'm just zooming in so we can see it. And again, I have my front view and my side view showing right now because I need to see how this looks in these two views as well. I'm going to use my move tool because I can bring this up, right? I'm going to be labeling all of this after I complete it. And I'm going to keep my camera on my front view, my camera on my perspective view on front for now. And so here I am. So I'm going to just sort of start out and begin to with the head. And I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up a sphere. The sphere will behave as my joints. And so I'm going to make sort of a neck joint. And so this is this robot that I've decided to make. Okay. And I'll zoom in and zoom out. And if you aren't comfortable zooming in and zooming out, it probably means that you need to watch my tutorial on how to navigate around Maya. And so take a look at that if zooming in and zooming out and rotating is difficult for you. So I have my head, I have my neck. I'm going to do my torso. And when I go to do my torso, I could do what I have been doing already, which is simply clicking on the cube there. But at some point, you'll actually see me make duplicates instead of just clicking and making a bigger one, bringing them from the top here. At some point, I'll do some duplicates. Now, remember, I have my move tool, my rotate tool, and my scale tool. So I can click on my scale tool and sort of change the shape of this. Just because I'm working with objects and I'm not breaking them down into faces and edges and vertices does not mean that I can't get some different shapes. And so as I said, I'm going to stick with my Polygon primitives, and I'm going to stay in object mode. But in the future, I'll change from that. But for now, I'm good with object mode. So I built the chest. I'm building my waist. And again, some of what I'm doing is I'm thinking about how this character is going to move. And I'm putting these spheres in the places where the character will move, how the character will bend and rotate, etc. So next I'm going to do the waist or the trunk, and I'm going to do that with another cube, but instead of clicking here, which is what I've been doing, I'm going to actually just duplicate the chest. And to duplicate the chest, I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate. Okay. And once I do that, I can use my move tool and bring that duplicate down. What that did for me was just allow me to, if I wanted the chest and I'll say the hips or the waist to be, or the trunk to be this, and when I say hip, waist, trunk, I'm sort of using them as the same thing. If I wanted these two parts to be the same size, then I could duplicate it rather than get another cube and try to shape it. Okay. Now it just so happens that I want the hip, the trunk to be slightly more narrow. So I'm going to bring it in through my scale, but I did want it to be similar size. Okay, so that's why I duplicated it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back some just so that I can see more of what I'm doing. So this is my side view, remember, and this is my perspective view, so I can rotate and move around the stage and see it in 3/4 or any view I want. You can see the top, bottom, everywhere. But for now, I'm just using my front so I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to get another sphere rather, because what I need to do now is build the hip joints. Because again, I said the goal ultimately is not to only build this character, but to animate it. And so again, I'm thinking about the how this is going to move. So we are here. And I'm thinking about how big I want my joints to be as well. They don't have to be the same size, although I am sort of working symmetry. So I'm going to duplicate that one. And just in case you forgot, that's Edit, Duplicate. What you'll also see is there's a shortcut, and that's the shortcut that I use to create that. And I'm going to do that a few times, but remember, duplicate is under Edit, Duplicate. Okay. So I'm going to keep going. Now I have two. The reason why I duplicated is because I wanted the joints to be the same size. Okay. And so I'm going to scroll back a little bit so I can see. And now I'm going to go ahead and do a cube so I can do the one of the thighs. So there's my cube. Remember, it comes in at 0, 0, 0 axis. So right in the center of my stage. And I'm going to bring it over and bring it up. And again, what I'm thinking about is not only the structure of this, but the movement of this, right? Now, if you're a person who says, hey, I don't really want the spheres to show, you can hide them when you animate them. I'm not going to do that in this one, but it is something that you could do. And if you're interested, you can definitely ask me to help you do that, because it's not hard. It's just not what I'm doing. So I'm going to bring this in some, because I didn't want the legs to be that thick, and I'm sort of looking at the upper thigh that I'm creating in comparison to the entire body. Okay, because I didn't do any drawings, I didn't do any orthographic drawings and put anything in. I'm really just eyeballing this, which can be sometimes very difficult. But because we're just starting out, I just thought we'd start out with something simple. And so I'm going to rotate this around just so I can look at it in 3D and primitive in the perspective window camera, so I can see what's going on and to determine if I'm happy with this. Okay. So if I like this, again, I don't have to get another cube and redo that. I can just duplicate it and put it on the other side. Okay. So now I have my thighs. Oops. Here we go. Let's go back. And so now with my two thighs, I'm going to put in my knees. And instead of, again, creating my knees by clicking on the polygon primitives here, I'm actually going to go to my hips, which are here, and I'm just going to duplicate it and then click and bring it down. So always remember, when you duplicate it, it's duplicating it in place unless you tell it to do something different. And that's fine with me. So I'm going to duplicate it and put it in place and bring it down. Okay. And again, I'm going to look at my other views. Particularly, you see me staying in front view for what I'm doing, because I need to really make sure that I kind of stay. These are 2D orthographic views, whereas 3D or the perspective camera is showing it to me dimensional. Sometimes you'll put something and using a perspective camera and not realize where in space it is, versus a 2D orthographic or a side view and front view 2D orthographic are a little bit easier to comprehend. So I'm going to just bring that over. Okay, so now that I have my knees, I'm going to go ahead and create my lower legs. And I'm going to create my lower legs off of my thighs instead of creating it from scratch. So I'm going to hit duplicate and scrolling back, because I want to bring it down with the Y axis or arrow, because Y is up and down, and I don't want to move it from side to side. So I want to keep it, make sure I'm keeping it in place. Then I'm going to duplicate again. And I'm going to put the other lower leg in. And I'm paying sort of attention because I don't want it to look like this, right? Because it wouldn't look like they were from the same thing. And if I was really nervous, I would just really bring it up. Zoom in really tight so you can see things, because if we pull it out, we can't really see it that well. Then if we move it, if we went all the way in to really look. And if I don't like it, remember, I can just click on it and delete it. And let's say I click on the upper or the thigh here and just duplicate that. And then I'm gonna scroll back again because I really want to grab it from the Y. And I'm gonna zoom in and bring it down. So I want to see it in proximity to the, and actually now that I see, well, I'll hide it a little bit. Okay. And just to make sure, yeah, I wanted to make sure that it moves that way. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the ankles. I'll click on the sphere, then duplicate. And my ankles, I'm going to resize using my scale tool and make them a little bit more narrow and bring them. And then I'm going to duplicate that first ankle to create my second ankle. And so now I have that. And you can see, if you haven't noticed, all of these, I can see all of the primitives that I'm using here. I'm going to have to label all of these and put them in order at some point. Okay, so now that I have that, I have my ankle, I'm going to create my feet. And I'm actually going to create it from my lower leg. And so I duplicated it. And again, remember, when you duplicate things, you need to pull them out so that you don't have them and not have them put in place. Okay, so putting that here, and I'm scaling it because I'm making the foot now. And I'm going to put it here. And this is also going to require me to look in my multiple views here. Because now what I need to do is I sort of have this foot, but I want to elongate it. And so I'm going to use my scale tool for that and scale that out, and then use my move tool to move it forward. Okay. I can make it even longer if I want. And I'm just sort of thinking, I tend to like to make big feet. That's just sort of my personality. And again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I'm looking both at my side camera and in my perspective camera right now. And now I'm going to duplicate it because I'm happy with it. I'm going to bring it over and zoom in so I can see things a little bit better. See how it's slightly off? It's actually slightly going that way. That's good for me to see. Lining it up to my leg. And then I'm bringing it down. Okay, so now I have my legs, my hip, but I need to build my arms. And again, you can build something else. And of course, you can build very elaborate models with just primitives. Again, I'm sort of modeling for the purposes of animating. And so I have that in mind when I'm doing this. So I'm not putting a lot of detail here. I'm putting a lot of detail to prepare me for animating. So now I want to build my shoulders here. And I think I'm going to have them the same size as my duplicate, as my hips. And again, even though I duplicated it, I can always decide to change my mind. Like if I want my joints to be more shorter or smaller rather, I'll do that as I did just now. And again, at the end of the day, if I don't want anyone to see the joints, I can hide them so that no one sees them. What you don't want to do is have oblong joints because they won't work. So let me show you an example of that quickly. if I get a sphere and I say, okay, this is going to be a joint, and I scale from the center, which is what I've been doing, then I've kept it in proportion. But the moment I try to scale it from just one of the axis points, like my Y, we see this oblong shape, which you can't really use it for the joint anymore because it's not round. It's not the sphere round, it's oblong. So I'm going to undo that. And then even if I scale it from a different place, you just don't want that oblong form. Okay, so when I'm scaling, you're seeing me scale from the center to keep it all in proportion. So I'm going to delete that because I don't want it. So remember, once you select it, you just click on it and hit delete, and it's deleted. So now I have my shoulders, and I'm going to look at them also. And one thing I can also do, if I click here, you see how my mouse icon changes from that to that. And then I can actually pull this up. So I can look again from my orthographic view. And I'm doing that because I wanted to make sure of that spacing. So I see that this one is all the way over here. So I don't want that spacing. So I'm going to bring this over here. So my spacing is better. Again, make sure you zoom in because many times it's very deceptive. And I'm actually going to click here and bring this over. It's very deceptive when you are, if you're zoomed, if you have the camera all the way back or the object way back there, you can't see. You gotta zoom in so you can really see. Okay. And so now I'm going to go ahead and build the arms. And again, instead of working from scratch, I'm going to use my thighs that I have here. And I'm going to come here and come here. Now, because I'm working with primitives, all of these are all separate forms. I could, in fact, build the arms going down, but I'd rather not. I'd rather sort of build them in more of a default pose. So I'm going to use my rotate tool, and I can look in my channels here and change the rotation from minus 90.256 to just minus 90, right? Because that's where I am on the Z axis. And then I'm going to use my move tool. So I know that that's at 90 degrees instead of sort of kind of at 90 degrees. And then I'm going to move it to where I want it to be here. Okay. The channels is a really great place to really do a lot of your measurements and check your measurements. Is also you can animate from here too. So I definitely recommend you to spend some time with it. I'm going to sort of shrink the upper arm a bit. So it's a bit of a different size than from the thigh. And then I'm going to hit duplicate and come on and bring it onto the other side. Okay. So I'm doing, as I said, one of the default poses. There's a couple of default poses. This one is going to be where the arms are extended out. Okay. I'm sort of wondering, no, I'm not going to make it longer. Okay. So now that I have that, also know that I could select both objects at the same time. You see how it's white there? And this is sort of green lines there. And I can move them at the same time. Okay. Because I wanted to bring them up a little bit. So now I'm going to click outside of that to deselect. Now I can actually create the joints or the elbow joint, which is duplicate right there and bring that out. Always remember when you duplicate, don't forget to bring it out because you'll have all of these shapes or forms all into one place and not know it. Duplicate and then bring it out. Okay. So all I'm doing again when I duplicate is use the shortcut, which is under Edit, Duplicate, and I'm using the shortcut, okay, for duplicate. So now I have my elbows, and now I'm going to go ahead and create my lower arm and hit duplicate. Okay. And I can slightly scale this. So I'm going to scale it to make it a little bit thinner, but then I'm going to elongate it. Okay. Kind of play with the shape a little bit, or the form a little bit. So once I have that, I'm going to head and hit duplicate and bring that to the other side. Again, notice how I stay in 2D orthographic for this, because I don't want the forms to move all around the place. I want them to stay in line. And so I'm staying with my X and Y. So my Y going up and down and my X going across. I'm not pushing it back using the depth, the Z. And so I am zooming in and out. Okay, so now I have my arms, my upper arms, my lower arms. I have my elbow, I have my shoulders. If I want to have hands, I could. I don't really think I'm going to put hands in for this, just because yeah, I don't think I'll put hands in. I already did the feet, so that's good. So now what you see here is my robot. Now, I'm not done so far as working with hierarchy and labeling things, but I can celebrate the fact that, you know, if this is your first model, just lining these up, congratulations, you created your first model. I'm going to switch to my perspective view and enjoy the fact that if this is the first time you're working in Maya and you created a character along with me, congratulations, you created your first model. Now I'm gonna do the next tutorial. The next tutorial is going to be labeling all of my objects, because I need to then set up the hierarchy for modeling them. Now, I mean, for animating them. Now, I could color these, I could texture these, and maybe I'll do another video that's showing that. But the next thing I'm going to do is label these and set up hierarchy. So that's the next video. Hope to see you there.